Let's go next to Attack from Denmark. Attack, you are on the air.
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking me again. It's been a while.
It has, I'm
So,
watching a Danish I'm watching the Danish version of House of Cards, this program called Borgen. It's fantastic.
Bowen, yeah, I'm quite well aware of that one.
Great show. Great
Anyway,
show.
absolutely. Anyway, my question actually was,
Please.
so I know from your covering that you spend a lot of time talking about like the U.S. reaction to the entire crisis in Ukraine, right?
Mm.
Now, my question actually is, what do you think actually the role of the EU is going to be in this overarching crisis? And actually, if this Ukraine crisis and the war happening currently is in many ways going to be a watershed moment in transforming the European Union into a truly global actor?
My thought on that is that what the EU does is going to kind of be led by what happens within NATO. I actually think that while these are obviously NATO is one thing and it's a shared defense organization, the EU is sort of a political and economic alliance, and it overlaps with NATO to some degree, but it is not NATO. My belief and expectation is because what is happening in Ukraine is at its core a military invasion by Russia, which is having economic and political consequences. Tell me if you think I'm naive. I think the EU will, to a great degree, take a signal from what NATO ultimately does or doesn't do, depending on how much longer this invasion continues.
That's interesting. So I would actually, to some degree, disagree, where I think that until now, the EU has taken a lot more initiative than NATO has. So one of the big things that happened on the 27th of February, around the time period when Germany announced their massive hike in defense spending and so forth,
Yeah.
is that the EU essentially announced that they were going to facilitate and coordinate the arms exportation of weapons to Ukraine. And you've probably heard about the entire deal if you know the idea of Polish fighter jets being sent
Yes.
to Ukraine as
Yes.
well, right?
Of course.
That was a proposal originally started by the European Union. It was Charles Michel, one of the leading people in the EU, who said that they were going to do it. Then they found out that they didn't really have the capacity to do it, so that's how the US got involved in trying to buy the jets from Poland and then send them over to Ukraine. But the interesting thing of that is that many of these arms exports and so forth are in many ways facilitated through the EU
Yeah.
and not through NATO. And that's something brand new for, an organization that historically there's been a lot of contention around the idea of it having any type of military role. The EU army being obviously a very contentious thing. But
I
in
don't
recent
disagree with
time,
you, but here's why I don't disagree with you about what has taken place. Here's the reason why I think now NATO may be more of a benchmark than the EU, which is at this point, we're getting to the question of what military resources are going to be deployed. Zelensky has now asked Canada and the US and others for a no-fly zone. He has asked for more weapons and more things, which I think now the next steps are really military questions. That's why this is just my opinion. We're just two people with opinions. This is why my thought is in the next 10 to 14 days, NATO may be much more of a guidepost than the EU. But either one of us might be right. We might both be wrong. Who knows?
yeah, absolutely. And I do think on another level, I mean, from the economic perspective, the EU sanctions against Russia have been quite substantial. I
Yes,
mean, it's the U.S. obviously has also done a lot, but considering the Russia's economy is way more connected to the European Union than the United States,
without a doubt.
pretty it's pretty crazy to see like the amount of stuff the EU managed to bring out in a incredibly short amount of time, especially when you think about the fact that the EU always has this reputation of being, a very slow actor that always takes
Hmm.
a while to respond to anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's going to be, I mean, I don't want to be, it's going to be interesting to watch. People are dying. So it's not, oh, I'm interested and don't care that people are dying. There's a
Of course.
crisis, but it will also be interesting to see how this is dealt with by the EU in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. And obviously, it's also a very personal thing for me because I have friends in Ukraine.
Mm,
I mean, one of my friends is currently fighting in Kharkiv
wow.
and has been engaged in combat. So it's a very, very terrible situation to sit here in, my comfort in Denmark and like watch people going through hell, people
Yeah,
I know going
it's
through hell.
horrifying. Horrifying. Let's hope it comes to a conclusion as soon as possible with as little death as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call, David. And
My pleasure.
Slava Ukraini.
All right. Thank you very much. There it is. Etka from Denmark. One of our sponsors is Atlas VPN, an awesome company offering free VPN subscriptions to journalists in Ukraine, risking their safety to do really important work. But Atlas VPN also has a lot to offer all of my viewers. Your internet traffic can be observed by a number of parties, your ISP, big tech platforms, even the government. That's why I use Atlas VPN whenever I connect to the internet. I don't want to be spied on. I don't want companies selling my personal information. You shouldn't either. Atlas VPN protects your internet connection by hiding your IP address, making you invisible online. With just one Atlas VPN account, I can protect all of my devices at the same time. You just turn it on once, forget about it, and stay protected. And their speeds are great. I've never had any lag while streaming video content with Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is giving my audience 82% off. This comes out to just $199 a month. Plus, you get 1 month free. Just click the link below and use the code PACMAN.